Just a brief introductions to the members. Each member is appointed by Scottish ministers, but the Commission is not part of government. It is an independent public body accountable to Parliament. And I am very fortunate. I have three very special fellow members, and together we make up the board of the Commission. So I'm delighted to welcome up first Professor Mary Brennan.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you all. It's a huge pleasure to be here. If I get through without crying, it'll be an achievement. But thank you for all your support and all the roles that each and every one of you have played in that nearly 30-year journey. My first job at Newcastle University was in 1999, so it feels very sort of, I don't know, symmetrical or symmetry to it. Some of you will know that I have spent my life between Ireland, England and Scotland. That was played out really quite starkly on Saturday. There are no video evidence or photos of who I was supporting in the third match. Suffice it to say, I think rugby won. I was born and raised in Dublin, but I am of Munster, of Limerick, and in particular South Kerry, a place that is very central to my journey in agriculture and food. That place is where our family mixed dairy, cattle and sheep farm is still based, a very, very small, stereotypical rural Irish farm. Through my early years and between the amount of time we spent in South Kerry, every moment that we could be out of Dublin, we witnessed the mechanisation of rural Irish farming. So I remember people taking milk churns on the back of donkey carts to the creamery right beside where we lived. I witnessed the breaking of the connections between farms who were each other's labour, who walked each other's land, who spent daily time with each other at creameries, playing Gaelic football and enjoying each other's company. I witnessed some of the loss of dairy, in particular, in South Kerry and how life has transformed and evolved over those 50 or so years. I've also witnessed and enjoyed the growth in leisure and tourism and the explicit connection between the land, the sea, and the food that it produces. I also, and many will know, we were raised with this incredible company, Kerry Co-op, or now Kerry Foods, who held and supported their communities throughout the time and who kept the connection between the milk and the farmers and the food we were eating, and continue in very many ways to this day. I then decided, rightly or wrongly, to do an engineering degree at University College Dublin, where I studied agricultural and food engineering. And it's no secret that I wasn't the world's greatest engineer. Turns out that the machines and me are not completely compatible, but what was compatible, and I say this to students every time I meet them, is I now know just what that degree gave me. An inbuilt understanding of systems, a knowledge and a capacity to question, to understand relationships, to think about interdependencies, to be comfortable in complexity and uncertainty, and to be aware of the trade-offs that need to be made, whether we are designing a pig production system or a automated brewing system, which one of my closest friends is one of the world leaders in. I then escaped with the full support of the engineering department in UCD to Newcastle University, where I found my real passion, and that was the people of food, and in particular, the people of policy and food, both the people who made policy and the people who were affected by policy. I was passionate and continue to be passionate, partly because I myself understand my own less than ideal behaviours. What were the good reasons why people engaged in less than ideal behaviours? This was framed at a time in the late 90s and early 2000s by the BSE crisis, by Foot and Mouth, and by a team at Newcastle who had their fingers on the pulse of what were the big food policy questions of the day. And I spent a lot of time engaging in work around domestic food safety practices, microbiological food risk, food waste, and other related activities. I became, while I am a marketer, I am the least commercial marketer you'll find, or one of the least commercial marketers you find. My passion is in social marketing and understanding how marketing helps us think about why people do what they do and how we can use the theories and ideas of marketing to drive social behavioural change. What was also really special about Newcastle, apart from it being, one of the most incredible cities in the world, and the football was pretty good at the time, as was the rugby, remember Johnny Wilkinson, was that I was in an interdisciplinary school that had no respect for disciplinary boundaries. It was there to question and challenge and to allow us to evolve by just exploring and developing our curiosity and our insight into what was happening and why it was happening. Led by Professor Chris Ritson, Professor Dave Harvey and Professor Philip Lowe, all coming from slightly different backgrounds, but all having their finger on the pulse and their feet in the rooms of UK food policy at the time. I stayed in Newcastle for about 15 years, and it formed me, if I'm honest. It really did form who I was and what I believed I was capable of, and where I wanted to put my efforts and my energies. But there's sometimes things change, and there are times to evolve and develop. And just before I move on, I think it's important, I put the Food Standards Agency on the screen here. And I met someone yesterday in London from there saying, I have a picture of it. The Food Standards Agency was a very seminal place for me. I was involved in very early research that was funded by the Food Standards Agency. And it was such a novel, dynamic, and quite complex agency to be a part of. And the roles that I played project-wise and expert committee really shaped my capacity to know that I didn't need to be the expert on everything in the room, but I needed to be able to ask really good questions of the experts. And I learned that really solidly, both at Newcastle, that's the agriculture building, we all have one of those ugly 1960s buildings, and Food Standards. You will see that is a cow from St. Finans Bay in South Kerry that I recently took. During that time, central to it was also my husband and a huge amount of time that I spent in North Yorkshire. And what the theme here is that I have spent my life between urban and rural. And I have evolved and developed a huge love and respect and understanding of the different places and geographies and connections between the two. I think what makes me and drives me is, in particular, this city versus rural and how I've navigated and sort of understood what that means to me. That insatiable interest in people's lives, or as my father, I take it from my father, nosiness, really, which is an underrated skill in an academic. But that then brought me to Scotland. And I arrived in Scotland at such an important point in that timeline, late 2013. And through that, Scotland was a fortuitous point in Scottish food policy. The University of Edinburgh is an amazing institution for the diversity of individuals who are doing work on food. And we came together in what is known as the Fried Network. And that was the start of this sort of journey to where I am here within Scotland. At that point, we were then asked for a representative to go to some strange meeting we weren't quite sure about an idea about a Scottish Food Coalition that had sort of come out of the non-statutory commission. And of course, and it wouldn't be right today not to call out Pete Ritchie and Vicky Swales, who were central to the creation of that coalition, which I then went on to chair between 2018 and 2025. Within that, I was also very involved in public food, in particular school food research, and helped support the coalition evolve and develop a really strong and well-considered collective voice that got us into the rooms, got us to the tables, and helped us to bring the voices and the lived experiences of civil society to the debate on the Good Food Nation. I was also very fortuitous to have survived COVID as Director of Undergraduate Studies in the Business School, but to then be given a sabbatical in September 2021. It wasn't as relaxing a year as I anticipated, but it was probably the most energising and exciting experience of my life. And as a result, why I'm here today with you is that I have been a strong advocate throughout the process for the Scottish Food Commission, for the need for an independent oversight body that helped to connect across the cluttered, often called ecosystem of public agencies. And I felt, and I still feel, a deep responsibility to step up to and be part of this commission. I have a deep commitment and an emotional connection to this work and to what we are trying to achieve and drive in Scotland. I believe I have a deep institutional memory, much of which I bore my fellow members of the Commission with, of how we got here and why we got here and who was so central to this process. And I think I'd like to end on a deep commitment, and this is my first major opportunity, similar to Dennis, a deep commitment to public service and to be able to help you all and ourselves to cope with the sort of messiness, the tensions, the interest, the complexity and the trade-offs of our food system as we sort of embark on trying to deliver this mission of making food work for all and achieving a fairer, healthier and more sustainable food system for Scotland. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's heartwarming to see so many people, faces that we know, and also so many new faces that I look forward to meet too. I'm Emily Combe. I'm a professor of human nutrition at the University of Glasgow. I've lived in Scotland for, I think, about 20 years now, and I was in England before, but ultimately I come from France. And like Mary, I bring some stories of food from where I was born, but my work experience is very much shaped by my experience here in the UK and in Scotland. At the University of Glasgow, my research is very much focusing on the intersect between food and food systems, health and diseases, and metabolism. And I like to focus on life cycle and how food and nutrition is going to shape our health span and health trajectories. And I think something that I think really resonates with what you've just said, Mary, is this complexity. The fact that I don't think it's possible to study food, to study nutrition, and take a very reductionist view of what's happening within the body or within populations. I've always worked in research, often near-market research, applied research, or translational research across a very broad number of fields. I started in biology. I'm a biologist by training. I moved on to food production and crop quality. I've got a PhD in mushroom flavor quality, which is a little bit niche, but it does bring a set of experience which I think are very much shaped who I am today and how I approach work in what I do. I then moved to biomedical research and medical research, mostly in gastroenterology, and then finally nutrition. So it's been a journey. I wouldn't describe myself as a nutritionist. I'm a biologist, but more and more someone who engages in complex systems, especially for food. I have two other roles which I think are really relevant to the role of commissioners. The first one is I'm the director of the Scottish Alliance for Food, which is an initiative funded by the Scottish Funding Council, really to bring together disciplines and sector together in the same room and create a dialogue and a set of opportunities so that we can co-create research for food as a societal grand challenge. And that's something I'm very passionate about. I know that some SCAF members are in the room, and if that's something that is of interest, I think we're always here to hear and to listen and to speak. The other role that I think is really relevant is I chair the Association for the Study of Obesity, which again focuses very specifically on obesity as a lifelong condition. And I think that's one of those specific focus that is going to be an important thread throughout our conversations. In terms of what I'm driven, I think I'm extremely hopeful about what the Commission can achieve with everyone in the room and the stakeholders in Scotland, but also outside of Scotland. And what I'm particularly excited about is the opportunity to bring people together, potentially people who don't speak to each other or people who don't agree with each other, and really take time to listen, to engage, to befriend, to create a different type of dialogue, a dialogue that is going to be inclusive and a dialogue that is going to be transformative to really achieve this ambition that we've got of making food work for all. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. I'm privileged to be here on what feels like another step forward in our shared ambition to make Scotland a good food nation. Many of you will have crossed paths, I'm sure, with my fellow Commission members, Mary, Emily and Dennis. I may not be so well known to you, though it has been nice to meet some friendly faces, particularly from Inverurie earlier on. So let me introduce myself. I've been deeply rooted in food production for my whole life. I was brought up on a medium-sized arable and dairy farm in the northeast of Scotland, next door to the farm on which Mackie's ice cream is made. My father's dairy herd provided the milk and cream for that business. My dad was a first-generation farmer, and he was from a whole line of self-starters, and there was no expectation that I would follow him into farming. So none of us did in my family, which was a good thing because I was allergic to dust, and also, if I'm honest, I was allergic to manual labour as well. So I leveraged my interest in food and food production in other ways. I cut my teeth handling communications for organisations across our food system in the whisky, red meat and public sectors. And in 1994, the year that milk was deregulated in the UK, most of you are too young to remember this, but milk was heavily regulated at that time. I got the chance to work with a small upstart and for many quite irritating East Kilbride-based business called Robert Wiseman Dairies. Alan and Robert Wiseman were young and focused and inspiring. They were disruptors in arguably the most traditional food sector of them all. They challenged everything that had been considered the norm. And as part of the board of that business, we were all encouraged to challenge, to break the mould. All of us had a similar profile. We were all pretty young. We were all, or a lot of us, came from the advisory community, and we were spotted and brought in-house by the Wiseman brothers. And it was really quite smart because of our age and relative inexperience. We were all highly motivated to do the best that we could possibly do. So together we built a company that employed 7,500 people in 6 state-of-the-art dairies, from Bells Hill right down to Bridgewater in Somerset. And instead of following the herd, see what I did there? And building these dairies where they had always been built in the centre of cities, we took a completely different approach. We built the dairies on the west coast of the country. So anyone that knows about dairy knows the rain comes in from the west, all the fields are on the west, the cows are on the west, so we thought it made sense to build the dairies on the west. And that meant that the milk travelled one way, from the farm to the dairy to the cities. And that enabled us to achieve better handling of fresh milk from farm to fridge. We dramatically increased the shelf life of milk because we handled it much more quickly and efficiently, and we were able to get the milk from the farm straight into the fridge really within 48 hours. And it also allowed us to reduce waste too, and that was our advantage there. The other thing that we did was, and again, this was quite informative for me, given my background, is that we built strategic partnerships, meaningful strategic partnerships. It's a very, very overused phrase, but the partnerships that we built with our major supermarket customers and food service providers protected and rewarded the farmers who supplied the milk, who had previously been fully exposed and cruelly exposed to global dairy commodity prices. So that was the Wiseman story. Once we ran out of UK and we got as far south as Somerset, we sold the business. And we had become the biggest fresh milk company in the country at that point. So the Wiseman brothers and some of my fellow directors all disappeared off. I decided to stay with the company that acquired Wiseman, and I was with Muller UK and Ireland for 10 years, and I served time in the UK and in Luxembourg for that business, which again is a family-owned business on a much bigger scale. And I stepped away after 10 years, 2 years ago. Since then, I've followed my twin passions, food and sport. I was appointed by DEFRA, the Scottish and Welsh Government, as an independent director of AHDB. AHDB, as many of you know, they empower farmers and growers with data and knowledge, marketing and services, and they're focused on helping farmers improve their profitability, improve their resilience, and improve their sustainability as well. One of the projects I really like that AHDB is engaged in at the moment is the first major attempt to try to understand carbon production and carbon on farms. So we have 178 farms up and down the country, including a significant proportion in Scotland. That work is ongoing. So for the first time, we'll be able to get that baseline and work out how to manage it. As an extremely old runner, but committed runner, I also set up a running club for my community that I live in Glasgow, and again did the opposite to what had been normal. Normal running clubs are about 100 years old. They're male-dominated, they're performance-obsessed, characterised by wiry wee guys who look really intense. So we changed that. We built a community running club. My passion for making running accessible led me to chairing a charitable trust for Scottish athletics. And I'm proud to say that we're making amazing progress in giving people from disadvantaged communities affected by poverty, the disabled community, the chance to participate and run, building friendships for life, and confidence. That little girl is Erica. She comes from Dalmarnock, and she made it into the Emirates world-class indoor arena last week because of the work that Athletics Trust Scotland does. So why am I telling you this? Well, for me, there's a logical thread running through my work now. It is about fairness, it is about progress, and it's about opportunity. I really enjoy and am motivated by seeing opportunities to support change. The confidence given to me and through my experience with Wiseman is a big part of that. And I also like to play a small part in helping to right some wrongs. So I'm very much looking forward to ensuring that the Scottish Food Commission does this. And I'm looking forward to meeting and talking to you and to hearing your stories over the course of the day. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, members, for those introductions. I'm going to move us on. I was delighted to see Jane Jones appointed as employee number 1 of the Food Commission. I'm going to hand over to Jane to introduce herself, the purpose and the mandate of the Commission. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dennis, and good morning, everyone. As Dennis says, for those who I haven't met yet, I'm Jane, and I am the Chief Executive of the new Scottish Food Commission. So delighted to have so many people here together in the room. My career has been shaped by a belief that food is more than just what we serve on a plate. It's very much about people, culture, health, fairness, and the strength of our communities. I've been really fortunate to work primarily in the world of public food, first in Argyll and Bute Council, and latterly in NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. And doing so has afforded me the opportunity to step into some key national roles. I'm really privileged and delighted to be a past chair of Assist FM and past chair of the Public Sector Catering Alliance. So public food has given me the privilege of working across many parts of the food system, from public sector catering to local authority leadership to national policy development. And throughout that journey, one thing has been constant, and that's my understanding that Scotland is full of passionate, knowledgeable people who care deeply about food and about each other. I've seen firsthand how food can tackle inequalities, how it can improve health and well-being, how it supports local producers and strengthens rural and island communities, how it creates dignity and opportunity. But I've also seen how complex and fragile and uneven our food system can be for families struggling with affordability, for producers adapting to global pressures, for public sector caterers managing rising costs, and for communities trying to build resilience. So stepping into this role now is both a privilege and a huge responsibility. As Dennis outlined, at the heart of the Commission's role is a simple but powerful vision, and that's making food work for all. But achieving that requires much more than just good intentions. So I'm really pleased to share with you our purpose. And our purpose is that we lead stewardship and oversight of the Good Food Nation Act by engaging diverse perspectives, scrutinising and applying constructive challenge, building mutual understanding and common ground, learning from best practice at home and abroad to drive transformational change of Scotland's food system into a fairer, healthier and more sustainable system for all. We're not expecting to do too much there, are we? But our mandate is clear. It's to provide independent expert scrutiny of Scotland's progress towards a coherent national and local food plans, to champion transparency and evidence, making sure that decisions are made that are grounded in robust data and lived experience. We will be advising ministers and helping government and relevant authorities to stay accountable on delivering their commitments, and ensuring that Scotland leads rather than follows when it comes to food system transformation. Dennis also said we're a small commission, and we will be small, but we have a wide scope. But we will also have a sharp focus on outcomes for people. A food system cannot be changed from behind a desk, and it certainly can't be changed by one organisation alone. So we will be working by collaborating widely with local authorities, the NHS, the third sector, partner organisations, industry bodies and food producers. We will be listening deeply to communities and to citizens across Scotland. We will be supporting alignment across health, environment, economic development, education and social justice, and opening doors for innovation, better understanding and supporting local good food movements, procurement transformation and sustainable supply chains. I also know the real constraints that are in play as we step into this journey in terms of finance, in terms of operational limitations and the challenges that we're facing around breaking down silo working. Indeed, we as an organisation will also be facing those challenges. So our approach will be grounded in the real conditions that people face. Transparency isn't an add-on for us. It's the foundation of trust. So we plan to operate with open meetings where that's appropriate. When we have a web presence, we don't yet, it will be coming in the coming months, but when we have a web presence, we will have a place there where we will share minutes, rationales, evidence papers, recommendations, so that it's available for people to see and understand. We will be operating with clear reporting against Scotland's national and local food outcomes, and we will be working where appropriate with public involvement in shaping our priorities and reviewing progress. We want people in Scotland to not only see what we're doing, but to be taking part in shaping it. And that involvement starts today with starting to shape our strategic priorities. A food system belongs to everyone, and the path to improvement also has to be shared. Now, the Commission has a statutory role to hold the government and relevant authorities to account. This means that as we establish ourselves over the next year, we will be monitoring progress against targets and commitments. We will be working to identify policy gaps or delivery challenges that are persistent. We will be highlighting opportunities for improvement, reporting independently to Parliament and ministers, and supporting relevant authorities as they develop their local plans. And as we know, we have an indicative timeline around that now, with Section 10 being enacted from the 1st of April 2027, with plans to be delivered by 1st of April 2028. Our scrutiny will be honest and evidence-based and constructive. We're not here to criticise for the sake of it, but we will be here to help Scotland succeed. But independence for the Commission means independence, and our assessments will be transparent, rigorous and rooted in Scotland's long-term needs. So over the coming months, we will share a clear timetable for our work, and that will include details of future engagement events like this one and online, a timeline for our first annual report and when that's due for publication, and we will, later this year, publish our first strategic plan. So in year one, our focus is on establishing the Commission as an organisation, building relationships across the sector, and beginning to identify the key levers that can drive real systems change. This timetable will evolve with input from partners because we want the Commission's early direction to truly reflect Scotland's strengths, challenges and ambitions. So today marks a beginning built on collaboration, shared purpose, and the belief that Scotland can lead the way in creating a food system that's healthier, fairer and more resilient, even when it is difficult and messy. And I'm looking forward to working with you all as we turn this vision into action. Thank you.